I was raised in a small town, Topsom, Maine, where boats and fishing are the way of life. So that's something I definitely just grew up being passionate about. I grew up in a very close-knit family. I have an older sister, Rhonda, and my younger brother and sister who are twins, Charlie and Elizabeth, or Chuck and Biff as they've become. And all my growing up years, we were not really allowed to be inside during the day. And living on the coast, the place you played was on the shore. So that's just kind of the way it started. My parents, they weren't commercial fishing. My mother was a, stay-at-home mom, and my father worked building naval destroyers and frigates. But they would certainly go out and catch a halibut to eat, catch some lobsters. So I was no stranger to being on the water. I think I spent my early childhood trying to catch anything that swam or crawled around the shores surrounding my home.
Coming from a place like the East Coast there, I mean, that is one of the first places that fisheries were started in this country. You know, that's a legacy to be a part of something like that that goes back for so many generations.
When I was a young girl, probably the age when most kids were learning how to ride bikes, I learned how to row. Then 10-speed bikes were all the rage. I had my very first 10-horsepower outboard motor. You know, I remember stealing my father's 40-foot boat at the age of like 12 years old. I knew then that fishing was going to be my career. I went to junior high and high school in a small-town fishing community. And living on the coast, there's nothing else to do there but fish. You know, the kids who really thrive and fall in love with it could make more money than their teachers. And that was very appealing to me. I had a very close friend whose father was a sword fisherman and had a boat, the Walter Alden Lehman Sr. And after I graduated from high school, cast the lines off the dock for my first 30-day adventures in pursuit of swordfish. There weren't a lot of girls fishing offshore. Commercial fishing is no place for a young girl. I used to hear a lot of that. The weather's coming on. Get them the hard way today.
I love people that dig down deep and follow their gut and go their own path and make their own future.
Nice fish. Get your gaffs ready, guys.
If you don't take a risk, you don't succeed.
I signed on to go as cook, and it just didn't last long. One of the regular deckhands had a back injury. They needed someone on deck. He became the cook. I became the deckhand. Ended up really thriving. I stayed on the same boat long enough to have done every job on the boat, became first mate, and, the rest is history.
Linda showed true grit from the very start.
Just getting into the industry is hard enough in itself. I would imagine being a female captain, that's a whole different ballgame. There's always been women in the industry through the years, but few and far between. And it's those people that make an impact. They're there for a reason.
My mother, she was just extremely good-natured. She had a great sense of humor. She had a laugh that was just absolutely contagious. She was a great mom, raised children that, some of us aren't too bad. I miss my mother every day. She was always proud of me, and she's proud of all of her children, and I know that's true. But she was pretty vocally against the fishing thing. You know, as much as my mother was not real crazy about me becoming a commercial fisherman, I can really put the blame on her. I remember it clearly at the age of 7 years old. I was pretty distraught about having been born a girl. And back then, girls did girl things and boys did boy things. And I was a wicked tomboy. And I complained to my mother. I remember it clearly. I went to my mother and I said, "Do I have to be a girl?" She said, "No. You can be anything you want to be. And that's exactly what I did. When I graduated college, you know, like 1979, 1980, it was expected that I might go to law school and become a professional of some sort. Law school was, I think, a dream of my mom's for me, but I knew when I graduated, I was going to take my degree offshore. That was hard for my parents. I saw it as an opportunity, and I went. I knew then that I wanted to be in the wheelhouse. I wasn't quite sure when it would happen, but I was confident that it would. I figured I'm a hard worker. I will learn. I will get my opportunity. And when that opportunity comes, I'll make the most of it, which is what I did. The owner of the Walter Alden Lehman Sr. bought a second boat. That was my opportunity to be skipper. And I remember the first time I left the dock as captain, nervous wreck. The boat leaked. I mean, it was a challenge just kind of keeping the boat afloat. But it was my first boat. My first job in the wheelhouse of the boat. It's funny because I was totally ready to take the reins. So we string 40 miles of long line. It's maybe 1,000, 1,200 baited hooks go out over the stern. We leave that gear in the water overnight. First thing in the morning, jump on the end buoy. We get nothing, blank, zip, doodah. It's like, oh.
I was fortunate to run a boat at a very early age, at 22. The first trip, I can't count how many pots I lost, especially in that propeller. You know, we caught crab, but not very efficiently at all. It was a goat show. That being said, it's the heart that counts. It's the willpower. It's the drive and the passion that counts. And I had a lot to prove because of my age. For Linda, I can only imagine that same mentality is there, where you always have this chip on your shoulder and something to prove, whether it's for yourself, the rest of the fleet, and especially the crew.
And it was no easy start for Linda either.
I did not start off as a fish killer. But, you know, I learned a lot, putting the gear on the fish, managing the crew, reading the weather, just making good decisions. And at the end of the season, I was at the top of my game.